Hello there. Is this the start of a mortgage bailout? It looks like the move to bailing out distressed mortgage holders has started. The Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, met with mortgage lenders this morning to cut a deal to help ease the upcoming mortgage crunch. The Chancellor said these plans would make a big difference, but I'm not so sure. I think they'll paper over a couple of cracks for a short while, and then when the pressure really does come to bear, he'll be in there with taxpayers' money like the good little socialist he's turned out to be. Anyway, what has he agreed with the bankers? First, people can phone up their lender to discuss any difficulties they might have with repayments with no fear of the conversation affecting their credit score. Are we saying that banks automatically lower a person's credit score if they even discuss payment difficulties or ask for advice about it, but don't miss payments? And mortgage borrowers will be able to go on interest only for 6 months or temporarily extend their mortgage with no hit to their credit rating. On top of that, the banks will wait for 12 months before commencing repossession proceedings. Now, those who think that this current interest rate situation is just a short-term blip and that mortgage rates will be tumbling back down soon are, I think, in for a big shock. So if a borrower can't afford a mortgage, how is a 6-month breather going to help in the longer term? And holding off repossession for a year will result in banks holding what can only be deemed as underperforming loans on their books. Does that have to be mentioned on their balance sheets? If it's as bad as a lot of people fear, then the brown stuff will hit the rotating ventilator sooner or later. Why not let the markets do their work and get it done with? And while higher interest rates are bad for borrowers, those that looked after their money and saved are not yet seeing the returns they deserve for their prudence. In fact, helping these distressed mortgage holders will cost the lenders money, with the money ultimately coming from under-rewarded savers. Anyway, what the Chancellor and banks have agreed to will just tickle the edges for those experiencing problems. This will just kick that well-kicked can a bit further down the street, either in the hope that they can contain the situation until after a general election, or while they conjure up some sort of financial trickery to save the housing market. And Tory governments are very good at that. They are past masters at getting the taxpayer to somehow foot the bill, while they try and make out everything is hunky-dory. But it's not just the UK property market that is under strain. In Germany, Europe's largest property market, house prices dropped by a record 6.8% in the year to Q1 of this year. And this comes after a 3.6% drop the previous quarter, all as a result of weak economic growth, increased borrowing costs and inflation. Remember that the next time a Ramona claims all our woes are UK only and all down to Brexit. And DW.com reported back in March that according to Germany's Bundesbank, housing prices in cities at the end of 2022 were overvalued by between 20 to 45%. But experts say there's little chance of a house price crash in Germany because demand is outstripping supply, partly due to them having to supply lots of housing for their newcomers, with DW.com also saying that to help address this, the German federal government had previously announced the goal of building 400,000 new apartments annually. Nevertheless, that goal has remained elusive, with the German Builders Association estimating only 245,000 units will be completed this year. Sounds pretty much along the lines of what's happening here in the UK, doesn't it? And at the same time, the Purchasing Managers' Index shows that the Eurozone economy has slowed, with the FT reporting that economists are warning of a potential recession rather than the rebound that the optimistic European Central Bank was pushing. So much for the Ramona green grass on the other side of the EU fence. And it seems that the Tories' idiotic net zero plan to tax the life out of companies operating in the North Sea has caused another company to exit stage left. Neptune Energy, one of the North Sea's largest operators, is being sold off to the Italian energy giant Eni for £3.9 billion. Another strategic UK asset sold off by the Tories. Wonder how much tax Eni will be paying in the UK. And when Labour gets in, they'll really set about wrecking the country. And Starmer will have less North Sea tax to rely on, while he will definitely need to import coal, gas and oil at great expense, unless he's intent on shutting UK PLC down for good. Just more pretend green, while we end up exporting our carbon footprint and not reducing the real size of it. So according to a former First Sea Lord, the Royal Navy is now pathetically weak. Talking to the Mail, Lord West of Spithead said that the number of ships the Navy has is pathetically low. We do not have enough ships in our territorial waters, exclusive economic zone, or to ensure with our allies the security of the sea lanes, and that is something that is crucial to this country, he said. We've forgotten we're a maritime nation, he said, adding, more than 90% of all our imports and exports go by sea. We have a huge tapestry of cables going across the Atlantic and to Europe, pipelines bringing gas to this country. All of these things we know the Russians are looking at, and we should be very concerned. Lord West, who is a Labour peer, also brought up the parlous state of the Navy during a recent House of Lords debate, where he had an interesting reply from Baroness Goldie, a Tory Defence Minister.
Third oral question, Lord West of Spithead.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the multi-role support ship, the MRSS, and the Type 32 programmes remain in the concept phase and have not yet reached the level of maturity to confirm when orders are expected to be placed. The programme and procurement strategy for MRSS and Type 32 will be decided following the concept phase.
My Lords, as I stand here today, our great maritime nation has 11 operational destroyers and frigates. Why are we in this parlous state? The reason is that for many years, up until fairly recently, we haven't been ordering ships on a rolling basis. This is absolutely necessary for a proper shipbuilding industry. And indeed, the government recognises that now, and within the MOD, the government ministers understand the need for a rolling programme. We have had some recent orders, but they've stopped. We must keep ordering, otherwise we'll have the same problem again. The Treasury do not seem to understand that if you don't do that, the SMEs go to the wall, all our trained people go to the wall, we don't have a proper shipbuilding industry, and we won't have a proper fleet. Could I ask the noble lady, the Minister, could she go to the Treasury, please, and say to them and point out the error of their ways and how important it is for us to go down this route?
You know, I do not impugn the noble Lord's right to hold the government to account, but I would not wish his persistent interrogation and commentary to imply that our Royal Navy is in some dysfunctional state. And I have to tell him that the Royal Navy was one of the few navies in the world to have ships in every ocean on the planet in 2022, from the High North to the Antarctic, from the Baltic to the Pacific. And it continues to deliver on its commitments while undertaking the biggest recapitalisation of the fleet in a generation, from Type 23 to 26 and 31, from Vanguard to Dreadnought. And it's worthwhile reminding your Lordships, our Royal Navy is one of only 3 navies in the world to be able to operate 2 fifth-generation carriers and aircraft, along with the United States and China. My Lords, the Royal Navy is our British pride and joy, and I just wish that sometimes the noble Lord, Lord West, would acknowledge that instead of repeatedly, monotonously talking down his former service. It's time to champion it.
That reply from Baroness Goldie sums up this Tory administration. Cut the forces back to the marrow and order people to say it's wonderful. But if Lord West thinks his Labour Party will be any better when Keir Starmer gets in, then I think he's got a bit of a surprise coming. Because I fear that our armed forces are being deliberately run into the ground to allow the civil service to tell the UK government that the only way we can defend ourselves is to rely on the EU. Then they'll join us up with the EU's military programme and have our forces and foreign policy run from Brussels. Just like the establishment and the US wants.